It was New Year's Eve in the camp of the Gold Nugget Saloon. It was doing a heavy business all along the line. Drinks were being rapidly dispensed over the counter, and in the real faro roulette and draw poker were flourishing. Pete was in high humor. He had bucked the tiger successfully tonight and had quit ahead enough to work his claim in Corkscrew Gulch. True, he had not been in assessment work this year, and by law anybody could jump the Lone Star that very day at midnight. But Pete was not the man to be fooled, as he already had 2 graves to his credit in Doc Turner's ranch. The name applied to the cemetery in honor of the local doctor, which contained the bodies of 2 tenderfeet who had differed with him and were accidentally shot. So the inhabitants of Galensville concluded he was a safe man to be let alone, and he laughed at the idea that anybody would be so foolish to commit suicide, as he termed it, by attempting to jump his claim. The old year had been but a few minutes to live when Hank tied up his horse among the tall, snow-laden pine trees near the Lone Star and loosened the thongs which fastened a pick to his horse's saddle, and transferring a couple of sticks of dynamite and some candles from his saddlebag to his pockets, he shouldered the pick and slowly mounted the tumultuous trail. He had long awaited this moment. 4 years ago, he had owned the Lone Star himself, but sickness came and he could not work his assessment. And when he returned to the prospect and found Pete armed to the teeth in possession, he had accepted his hard luck with good grace, but had laid for Pete ever since. Now, at his last opportunity had come, and he had determined to regain his property and defend it at the risk of his life if necessary. The tunnel was soon reached, and the moonlight streaming assault its black mouth easily disclosed his eyes Pete's location stake. He looked at his watch. It marked exactly midnight. Reaching down, he fiercely wrenched the stake from the ground and flung it far from him down the mountain. He then lit a candle and, finding a board, quickly sharpened one end of it and, smoothing off the broad end, wrote his location notice on it, rechristening the claim to Bright Hopes, and planted the stake firmly in the ground. Thinking he would go into the tunnel to the breast and see how she looked, he took up his candle and pick and started in. Just as he did so, he thought he had heard a whistle. He paused and listened. Someone was coming up the trail below, whistling softly. Quickly dousing the light, he crouched behind the big boulder just at the mouth of the tunnel and drew his revolver. A few moments later, Pete stepped in view, with a week's supply in a sack slung over his shoulder. Before he could put his burden down, Hank suddenly rose up before him with the muzzle of his pistol almost touching the other's face. "Hands up," he cried. "I've got the drop on you now." Pete swore a horrible oath, but seeing the other man had a full hand, promptly threw up his, while Hank deftly relieved him of his firearms. "'Tain't worth fighting about anyhow," said Pete carelessly. "There ain't a pound of ore in the whole claim." "Oh, come off," said Hank. "How about it, all the ore you shipped last summer?" "That was out of a pocket I struck, which petered out mighty quick. But if you don't believe me, I'll go in the hole and show you." And taking a candle, Pete started in the tunnel, Hank following, but keeping his hand within easy reach of his gun. The breast of the tunnel was soon reached, and Pete, holding his candle up before it, "There now, what do I tell you? Ain't nothing there but dead rock." Hank took the candle and carefully examined the breast, roof, and sides, but not a trace of mineral could be seen. "You're welcome to her," said Pete. "I've blown in all the money I want to. You can have her and a blast of her now if you want to." Hank did not reply, but appeared to be lost in thought. Finally, he said, "Hold my candle a minute, Pete." And taking up his pick in both hands, he struck the breast a heavy blow, and the rock and mud with which wily Pete had plastered to it, full curious and unwelcome visitors fell away, exposing a vein of glittering white metal. Almost at the same instant, there was a deafening report, and Hank fell to the ground with a bullet through his heart. Pete, with his smoking revolver in his hand, which he had snatched from Hank's belt as he struck the blow, stood over him with a grim smile as he muttered, "Another accident." But retribution was close at hand. The reverberations of the shot had hardly died away among the neighboring peaks when a rock, which had long been loosened, started by the sudden shock, fell from the roof, bringing down tons of earth with it, and Pete and his third victim were crushed in a shapeless mass. This has been Jumping Acclaim by Alfred E. Keet. Published in Short Stories, a magazine of fact and fiction, Volume 13, 1893. Narrated by Conan Stewart for Tales Reawakened on YouTube.